ジョーの野郎。鬼姫が完全にぶっ潰しやがって。
Oh my god. Hello everyone, welcome to Joe Consumes Cinema. I'm your host. Congratulations, Yubuki Joe. You graduated from juvenile detention to full-blown prison. And today we have Ashita no Joe, episode 6. It's a really good episode last time. Joe has found himself in, juvenile detention. They did a little evaluation. He didn't take it super seriously, kind of blew the doctor off, and of course, that did not go well for his evaluation. And it's been decided that, he's being sent up to actual jail now. Dangpei and the kids are devastated. Dangpei learned, throughout the course of the last episode that he can send correspondence, and that's the only way he can actually communicate with Joe. But it's one way. So he sent boxing instructions to Joe, working on his jab, specifically his left jab, and that's very important for, a right-hand dominant fighter. If they can be taught how to throw, a good left jab to set up the right hand, it really, really opens up a lot of big possibilities. And one of the things I really like about this show is, as far as the boxing goes, the person, behind this whole thing is actually a really big fan and seems to know what they're talking about. Like, I would not be surprised at all if the creator, used to box when they were younger, had dreams of being an actual fighter, and then, took up manga, anime later in their life, and, this is like a passion project of theirs that, they always wanted to get off the ground, because it really just seems like everything so far has been very authentic. It was really cool how Joe initially, blew Dangpei off, literally ripped up the letter, but then got so bored that, he eventually pieced it back together and then, actually started working on it. Even he remarked how, he tricked him into finally learning something from him. I think that's going to be a really big theme going forward. Joe is very reluctant, but then ultimately decides to actually listen, try it out for once, and then realizes, hey, there's something to this. But yeah, we're 5 episodes deep so far. Every episode has been fire. I expect this one to be fire too. So yeah, honestly, I want to get right to it. But as always, remember to blank, blank, and blank. We're still very much a small channel, so every like, comment, share, subscribe that we can get really helps out. I really appreciate it. Patreon link down below. With that, let's get right to it. Tatake. だけどリリリ明日はきっと明日はどっちだ I'm never gonna get tired of the intro or the outro. Explode left jab. Jesus.
明日のためにその2右ストレート左ジャブで相手の体勢を崩し突破口を見出せばすかさず右ストレートを打つべし。ジョーだ！ジョー！明日のためにその位置見てくれたかい？あの左ジャブをマスターしたらな、今度はこれだ。字は汚ねえが、まあ急いだもんで勘弁しろ。
Ah, shit.
ジョー！ジョー！やい、おいぼれ。よくも俺をこんなとこに叩き込みやがったな。この野郎！こら！何をするか！笑わせんない。俺はな、金輪際ボクシングなんかやらねえからな。ざまみやがれ！覚えてろ？俺は鑑別所から出たらな、真っ先にその鼻をぶっ潰してやるからな。覚悟しやがれ！
That's gotta be heartbreaking for him. Even after all this, he still won't listen to him, even though we already did a little bit.
Yes! 新入りの矢吹城だ。みんなよく面倒見てやってくれ。
Here it comes.
ねじんぼか。まあやろ。
ありがてえや。なんであんちゃんどけいいじゃないかよ。何ちゃんでいてて話しやがれ話せこれで
Jesus.
よし効果始めだあれ打った
Oh shit.
たわいのねえやつだぜ、もう気絶しやがって。おいで、明日。そんなに飲んじゃ、体壊しちまうよ。
Ah, shit, he's back to drinking.
断平おっちゃん、もうジョー諦めちゃったのかな？
そんなことないよ、やけになってるだけだよ。
おっさん、何ぼやっとしてんだい。
ジョーお前！
縄跳び3000回、もうやっちまったよ。
He's still daydreaming about it.
くそー！俺をバカにしやがって、チキショー！そう覚えてやがれー！貴様なんざ、のたれにしまえ！死んじまえ、チキショー！おい、給食係のお出ましだ。早く片付けろ。今夜久しぶりに豚汁だ。うまいぞ。
Getting back to his feet.
おって。
何しやがるんだよ、てめえは。俺の飯じゃねえか。
最初の飯ぐらいは、ボスに差し上げるもんだぜ。
俺はもう完全に頭きちまってるんだ。だからよ、てめえらがどうなだめすかしたって。
はよ相手してやらんかい！ガハー！話しるべ。なかなか言うな！
Here we go. Jesus.
じゃあ、ここで一丁、断平親父の通信教育を実地に試してみるか。
Oh shit.
殺したる！ぶっ殺したるで！
肘を左脇から離さない心構えで、やや内側を狙い、えぐり込むようにして、
There it goes.
撃つべし！撃つべし！撃つべし！撃つべし！撃つべし！撃つべし！撃つべし！撃つべし！撃つべし！撃つべし！
It's destroying him.
肘を左脇から離さない心構えで、
なんだ？
やや内側を狙い、えぐり込むようにして、撃つべし！明日のためにその1、ジャブか。
すぐ独房へ放り込んでしまえ！そんな調子じゃ、ジョーの少年院行きは確実ってことよ。半年。ひょっとするともっと長いかもしれん。おっちゃん、明日のためにその1って一体なんだ？なんだよ。お前、それ、どこで聞いた？明日のためにその1。ジョーが鑑別所で大暴れした時そんなこと言ってたんだってさ。おい、太郎。それは本当か？おう。
Yeah, he read it.
俺が書いた明日のためにその1。左ジャブ。ちげえねえ。間違えねえ。奴が俺のハガキを読みやがった。ざまあ見ろ。奴と俺とは切れちゃいねえんだ。こうなりゃハガキだけが命の綱だ。俺の命の綱だ。よいしょ。右ストレートは右拳に全体重を乗せ、まっすぐぶち抜くように打つべし。いいか、ジョーよ。よーく見るんだぞ、よーく。
明日を目指して立ち上がる。
立つんだ、ジョー！
子守歌はリングにゃないぜ。立たなきゃ。
Okay, took some time just to gather my thoughts. Episode 6, another fire episode. Really cool how Dangpei, initially hasn't given up on Joe, is convinced that, he's definitely read the letter. He writes a second letter. He and the kids are going to go to the facility because he's being transferred to, I think, actual prison this time. But there's a short window where they can actually see him and talk to him real quick and, give him something. They're all so excited. Joe takes the letter and, he thinks, okay, he's accepting it. He's really, starting to take to this. Sure enough, Joe rips it in half, says he has no interest ever becoming a boxer and, to watch out. The second I get out of here, I'm coming for you. So Dangpei, of course, is devastated by all this news. He goes back to drinking, unfortunately. And even though all the signs point to, this being over, the dream is dead, he still can't give up on it. He passes the sandbag that's, tied on the tree branch, and he lets himself dream again. And, it brings him happiness, but then also immediate sadness, knowing that, this is never going to happen. He rips the thing off, throws it in the little pond, and, just goes back to wallowing in his own misery, at what could have been. But sure enough, we know that Joe actually did read the first letter and, took the lesson to heart and used it this episode quite effectively. I talked about it a little bit, but the creator of the show, I can tell, is a big boxing fan because they're talking about some sound fundamentals here. If you're a right-hand dominant fighter, one of the really good things you can add to your toolkit is a sharp left-handed jab. It just, opens up a ton of possibilities and literally makes your right hand come alive when you can, tag someone with a jab multiple times and then, finish them off with the right. And that's exactly what Joe did in this episode. He gets transferred to the actual jail, and of course he has to share a cell with like a dozen other people, and they're like this little gang on the inside that immediately think Joe is just, fresh meat, another fish that they can do whatever they want with, have their fun with. Initially they get the drop on him, so, they start beating the shit out of him, various games that they've come up with. The twisted stick, literally a wet rag that twisted and shoved down his mouth as they pull his arms and legs in, these weird contorted positions that, borderline breaking his bones, but not quite. Then they play something called Parachute Team, where they get on the top bunk and 4 people are holding his arms and legs out, so he's sprawled out like this. And people take turns literally jumping and stomping on his torso. It gets to the point where he literally passes out, and, they throw water on him just to wake him up so they can start again, and that's when the food shows up. Well-timed distraction for Joe because, while they're all preoccupied with, finally getting something to eat, and once he does that, as he says, it's the perfect opportunity to test out Dangpei's teachings, and sure enough, that shit works like a charm. He clobbers all the goons easy enough, similar to the Yakuza fight, and then he has to fight their boss, the bigger guy, and, that's where he really puts to work the teaching, the lesson. He recites it to himself right before he fights him and then, puts it to work, puts it on him right away, just beating the shit out of him. By the end of it, the big dude is a bloody mess, and even though he's tough, it doesn't matter. Joe just kicks his ass. And while I'm pretty sure, after that display, nobody's going to mess with him on the inside, at the same time, it's his first day and he's already gotten into this big brawl. Yeah, he's looking at some serious trouble. He's going to get his own cell, which is good, but at the same time, if he's trying to get out of here quickly, this is not the way to do it. The kids show up, trying to talk with Joe, but he's not allowed any visitors because of his bad behavior. One of the kids talks about how Joe is going on and on about, Tomorrow's Joe, Lesson 1, which is the title of the letter that Dangpei initially sent him about, how to use the left-handed jab appropriately to, make the right hand come alive. So Dangpei hears this, immediately, gets excited and lets himself to start dream again once more about, the possibility, like, Joe read the letter, so I can actually reach him, I can get to him. At the very end of the episode, we see he's working on the second letter, the straight right, sitting down in the punch, putting all your weight and momentum into it. Really strong finishing move. And even though Joe, you can tell, is a natural talent, the fact that he's finally getting some real guidance and hopefully establishes some basic discipline is going to take him, from his current level to, like, professional. And yeah, another really good episode. Honestly, I just look forward to the next one. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got. As always, thanks for watching, and peace.